Alright, Spider-Man No Way Home. I think I'm ready. So Spider-Man No Way Home is the newest Spider-Man movie, and as the trailer showed us, it's bringing a lot to the table. I was honestly very worried about the rumors going into this because I really didn't want another Spider-Man 3 or Amazing Spider-Man 2 disaster, but then I kept telling myself to stop being so skeptical because my mind kept telling me things like,
"Oh, come on, man. Believe in something."
Look, the hype is real, guys, and honestly, this movie might be one of the most difficult reviews I've ever written on this channel because I don't quite know how to wrap my head around this film. I mean, when I made a trailer reaction a while back, I decided to not release it because of how much a reaction it wasn't. I mean, this is the most I spoke while watching the trailer.
Oh my god! The Green Goblin!
Nevertheless, I still can't believe this movie is real. I mean, is it as amazing as Into the Spider-Verse? No, but it's really damn close. I haven't been able to take my mind off this movie. I kept struggling to comprehend what I was looking at sometimes because it was something that felt so insurmountable. This movie just knows how to balance something I like to call nostalgia. It took all the strengths of the other Spider-Man films with the slow, dramatic pace of the Maguire movies, the charming humor and charisma of the Garfield films, and the self-awareness of Spider-Verse, and managed to squeeze it all together into this tremendous accumulation of 3 generations and everything that I just love about Spider-Man. It did what Spider-Verse did so expertly, and that was building upon what you already know about Spider-Man, and the best part is, they used it as an advantage rather than a disadvantage. I saw this movie in a massive theater filled with hardcore Marvel fans, and when the big moments rolled around, everyone got up out of their seats and started cheering so ferociously. The amount of nostalgia and size of this whole experience was off the charts. Safe to say, without spoiling anything, when the villains show up, it's just amazing, spectacular, just everything. I like what the villains brought to the movie, and granted, they are here for fan service and only fan service, but it was fan service that felt like a purpose. You'd think they'd be like, hey, remember how cool those Spider-Man movies were? We remember too. I think it goes without saying that most of these films from the other Spider-Man franchises didn't end their stories on that much of a high note. But here, the movie feels like it's giving these characters the finales and retroactively delivering the closure they deserve while still being its own unique Spider-Man movie, which cannot be overstated enough was just absolutely genius. As hyped as I was for Alfred Molina's return as Doc Ock, and yeah, he was absolutely incredible, Willem Dafoe, or Dufresne as I like to call him, absolutely knocked it out of the park. Nearly 20 years since the first Raimi Spider-Man film, this man hasn't lost a sinister step, and yeah, he steals just about every scene like he did in his movie. He's just such a force of nature. Jamie Foxx got such an upgrade in this movie. Like, remember the amount of potential he had in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but was completely wasted by looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze and being in the movie just for... I honestly don't know why, except proving that getting a superpower can also give you excellent dental care. Seriously, what is that, Invisalign? But here, they utilized him in the best way possible, gave him the closure that he so desperately deserved, and he was just funny. And also, he wasn't blue, which in my opinion is just so much better because the more I look at him, the more I think of that one episode of Arrested Development. I mean, Sandman and the Lizard kinda just feel like the bench warmers on a basketball team, even though it's cool to see them again and these actors inhabit these roles. And truthfully, I thought they did a surprisingly amazing job at having this moral dilemma and having Spider-Man and the villains deal with this moral dilemma. This movie took such a different direction than I was expecting, but that was honestly its biggest strength. Without any spoilers, the way this movie utilized these characters and their interactions off each other gave it this natural charm that just kept me wanting more, and I felt so genuinely sad to see it end. One of the things that really surprised me about Spider-Man No Way Home is that it feels like a Spider-Man film that just so happens to be Marvel, rather than the first 2 movies, which felt like a Marvel movie that just so happens to be Spider-Man. This movie had such a surprising amount of emotional depth for Peter Parker to deal with, and honestly I felt like Tom Holland did such a phenomenal job, probably his best performance ever. And this is coming from a person who's been a Tom Holland stan ever since Civil War, and to see his absolute riveting progression of his iteration of Spider-Man on the screen is enthralling. I mean, honestly, everybody does so amazingly well. Zendaya was absolutely amazing in this movie, as she is in everything, she really can do no wrong, and we felt like we could see a little more layers with her character. Jacob Batalon is fantastic and has some of the most hilarious moments in the film. I mean, they're such a priceless trio.
Hey, wait a minute.
This movie gave fans everything we could have asked for, while still telling a dramatic and strong story. It knows that it's here for nostalgia-based fun, and they dive deep into that, but it doesn't lose its identity, and gives us a roller coaster of emotions, nostalgia, sadness, happiness, every feeling possible. Anyway, I don't regularly do this, but considering that this movie can't be talked about without spoilers, and because I really want to talk about the spoilers in this movie, from this point on, this video will be nothing but spoilers. So skip to this time frame, and again, you have been warned. Spoilers. Even though I don't think it matters too much due to most of the internet already spoiling the movie, but again, you have been warned. So the moment where Luke Skywalker appears and chops Doc Ock in half with his lightsaber was too brutal in my opinion, but I'm actually really happy that he taught Peter the Force, and I'm very excited about what he's gonna do with it in the future. Toby and Andrew are in this movie.
See you, chump.
I still can't believe they're in this movie. I mean, when I saw the numerous amount of leaks, I mean, those damn leaks, I had an optimistic yet very pessimistic sort of feeling because I felt like this had to be real, but I didn't want to overstate anything, you know? But sure enough, they were real, and I kind of hate the fact that they were real, because I would have loved it if I had an even more genuine reaction than I did while watching them. Especially the Andrew Garfield one. I mean, that one is just, it's so unfortunate, especially when his excuse was that it was Photoshop. I mean, it's obviously not.
Have you seen the photo?
What are you talking about? Heard about it, and I did see it, and it's a Photoshop.
It may have been the industry's worst kept secret, but you can see why the industry wanted to keep this a secret.
Oh my God.
Roderick, can you explain what you're doing in this photo?
That's not me.
That's not you?
I'm not the werewolf.
Well, joke's on you, Andrew. I caught the werewolf red-handed, and it's you. But honestly, really think about it. If they weren't in this movie, wouldn't that be kind of the biggest letdown in cinematic history? Like, all these villains played by the same actors from 3 completely different franchises of Spider-Man films, and if they couldn't get the heroes to battle the villains, I mean, yeah, that would have just been disappointing.
What? Oh, you can't do this to me.
You know how much I sacrificed?
But the best part about this movie is that it doesn't treat them like nostalgia bait, it treats them like characters. I mean, the conversations they had alone are some of the best pieces of written dialogue in a Spider-Man movie to me, because it's honestly exactly how I picture 3 Spider-Men, and especially these 3 Spider-Men, talking to each other. And also, can we please talk about that heart-to-heart between Andrew and Toby's Peters? I don't know if he was projecting onto his performance or whatever, but when Andrew kept saying that he felt like he wasn't a good enough Spidey, that was kind of heartbreaking because he was an excellent Spider-Man. It was really the writing in that franchise.
You're a fraud, Spider-Man!
And of course, Tobey consoling him that he was indeed amazing. 3 times, in fact. Foreshadowing? And oh my god, when Peter was talking to them in the end, I was so waiting for them to hug each other, and when that happened, it was just the best feeling. I could literally watch those scenes forever. They're so watchable. Another great example is their convo during battle about the Avengers, and I just absolutely loved their back and forth.
I was in the Avengers. The Avengers? Yeah. That's great. Thank you. What is that? You don't have the Avengers? Is that a band? Are you in a band?
But this movie managed to give us what we've been waiting for forever, and I can never be more grateful for that. For example, seeing Andrew Garfield denying left and right that he's in fact not in this movie.
See? You see? Oh, you don't see it? He moves! Right there! Wait! Right there! Coincidence? I think not!
And Tobey Maguire playing a really cool youth pastor, which honestly is one of the best lines of the movie. But when they were back on the big screen, it was truly such a remarkable moment. I mean, the dynamic between Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, and Tom Holland, like, that's where the movie really shines for me. And honestly, it's not just the familiarity of these Spider-Man heroes and villains that we've seen before and grew up with, it's just the chemistry between them and the way they executed it is where I feel like it really hits its peak. They could have easily phoned it in and were just there because the money was probably good, but all of them felt like they were there because there was a story that could be told and give the fans justice. And some of the more damaged heroes find new closures figuratively and literally. I mean, when MJ falls from the Statue of Liberty, a really perfect location for the final battle, by the way. And even though in the Andrew Garfield movies, it was such an incredibly botched moment of such an iconic scenario in comic book history, it used that scenario to give Andrew Garfield's character that closure that he so desperately needed. I mean, when Andrew saves MJ, you could almost see the weight of guilt being carried away from his shoulders. It's such a brief and subtle moment, yet incredibly powerful at the same time. I'm also glad that Aunt May said the words, "With great power comes great responsibility," or in this case,
with being in a superhero film comes great contractual liability.
because who knew she would have died in this movie? That kind of broke me, even though it was a brilliant move to integrate the most iconic Spider-Man line into this world, but it was still absolutely heartbreaking to see her go. And again, going back to Tobey and Andrew, I love the moment they have together where they're like, "Uncle Ben said that to me," which is really similar to that scene in Spider-Verse where Miles is confronting the other Spider people after his uncle's death. It was such a great way to reconceptualize the classic origin story while also incorporating a fresh take on what seems to be Peter's absolute downfall. And that's probably what this movie does best, and that is, it understands Spider-Man. It understands the lore behind him and why people after all these years relate to him. It's that act of humility, that selflessness, the ability to do good and be this friendly neighborhood type of guy, even though sometimes you don't want to be. Every moment in this movie is always connected to Peter, and still after all these years coming to grips with what it truly means to be Spider-Man. Spider-Man resembles the best part of who we want to become. That person that will do whatever it takes because he believes in the good of us all. And none of that encapsulates that more than in the ending, when Peter realizing that the only way to protect the multiverse is to erase him from everyone's memory. Now, this is a moment that really hit me with the emotional sledgehammer, but it also really represented everything a good Spider-Man movie needs. The self-sacrifice, the good heart, the will to do the right thing even if it hurts Peter the most. I mean, that's the price to pay to save the multiverse. And if you really think about it, this trilogy has been the longest Spider-Man origin story ever, and I kind of love it for that. I mean, in the end, when he meets MJ, it's kind of the most awkward thing ever, because how do you elicitate something like that? I mean, it's not like, yeah, we saved the universe together and we loved each other. And I also kind of geeked out a little bit in the end that he literally sews his own suit without any Stark technology whatsoever, and the fact that the suit remarkably looks like an old school Spider-Man suit. I'm talking an OG 1960s Spider-Man suit. And he just lives on with a fresh start. And personally, I found that kind of sweet, devastating, heartwarming, and satisfying, all wrapped into one. And did I mention that Daredevil is in this, played by Charlie Cox, which is so exciting? And oh yeah, Tom Hardy was in this, and to be honest with you, it was kind of underwhelming. I mean, he basically just came to leave. It's like if you have a party and there's this guy that says that he's gonna stay here for real, and there's like this huge build up and he's gonna be the life of the party, but all he does is grab a few cupcakes and just leaves. Anyway, the lesson to learn from this movie, ladies and gentlemen, is if you and your friends can't get into the same college, well, the answer is clear. You just need to know a wizard who's willing to brainwash the entire world. Easy as that. I still can't even begin to describe how amazing this movie is. Normally I'd grade this film, but honestly, I kind of don't want to. This movie, much like Endgame, feels like a cinematic event, a celebration of 3 generations of Spider-Man movies, as Tom Holland likes to call it. So honestly, an arbitrary review score, in my opinion, wouldn't honestly do this film justice. All I can give you is a recommendation, and if you guys still haven't seen the movie, please go see it. It's everything you want it to be and so much more. I'm just so glad Disney and Sony made an agreement, because if they didn't, we wouldn't have been able to get the masterpiece of a Spider-Man movie that we just got. My only regret is that Stan Lee wasn't able to see this gem. Spider-Man was his favorite creation, and this is by far one of the best superhero movies I've ever seen. I feel like it would have made him very proud. Rest in peace, friend.